First up, we interview Bobby Kennedy about why he works out in jeans. I wear jeans so that I sweat more out of my balls. It's what helps to get the microplastics out. And we delve into why the New York Times is warning its audience that they might be too fat and old to partake in fitness challenges, and that their audience should stick to Ozempic and wearing masks at home, cementing itself as the paper for kids with allergies. In other news, it's been discovered that the leading cause of autism is actually Bobby Kennedy's voice. Next, the Crackle Barrel logo change has large portions of the population loudly stating strong opinions about a place they've never been inside of. Lastly, in sports news, male cheerleaders have many asking why we ever even like cheerleaders. And can we please get rid of this? It's gross. I don't need to see anyone with pom-poms. But with more fake sports on the rise, with a new women's baseball league being created, which has female sports fans wondering if it will have the same drama and racial tensions as the women's basketball league. All right, let's start the show. You heard the man. That's my cue to start the Run Your Mouth podcast. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have you back with us. All right, big pitch. Get in that car, take an airplane, do what you got to do, and get to Max's for the smoke out, bug out. You know, Max keeps threatening that he's going to leave. He's going to sell that house, and hopefully by then I'm cooking and podcast doing, and I can buy Pubcas, split that property, and keep it as a sanctuary for porches forevermore. And maybe I'll rent it as an Airbnb. It can be there as the original porch with no beds, no bathroom, no place to cook, but your ability to drink at the private bar that Porch Tour started at. Listen, it's going to be a great night. If you've never seen my friends, the Shedcast boys, I'm not even a rap fan. I love what they do. It's a good time. They're going to be opening up. Then we got a crazy lineup for a stand-up comedy show in the middle of nowhere. It's myself, BK Chris, Naeem Ali, and Drew Montana. And then, of course, I'm done. I've done all my homework. I sat down. I smoked the weed. I wrote all the questions for the Smoke Out, Bug Out. If you're not familiar with the platform, I thought the last two of them we're television worthy. Go catch up. Go catch up on the archive. I gotta sit down. I got more homework to do with all the stuff that's going on. I gotta post some clips. Rally the troops, though. It's Philadelphia Friday night, which maybe 5 tickets left. It's a 20-seat yard. It's gonna be an interesting one. And then we're off to Max's, the original porch, for closing out the summer, which, you know, I've done so much this summer and it feels like it's not enough summer. I'm a little bit disappointed that summer's already over. And I know I get to continue touring the country, doing comedy, podcasting, and all the fun stuff, but there's something about it's summer. But anyways, listen, we don't have to, let's put a positive spin on it, which is that there's one last weekend of summer Porch Tour. So come out. This past weekend was absolutely fantastic. What a run we did. I wish they were all 4-day weekends as smooth as this last weekend was. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 hours in the car after every show, get into the next city. All the shows were a blast. Kentucky was the highlight. My friends Shawnee and Ted have really opened up an incredible bar out there. And as much as I love porches, sometimes it's fun to squeeze 60 people, all the townsfolks, into a tiny room. It was about half fans and half like real Kentucky people. And that was a fun one. I think even after I film, hopefully in December, and put out like a new 45 minutes or a half hour or something like that, I might put up an archive of a couple porches, and maybe I'll make that just simple side shot that I have available. All right. I don't think I have that much else I don't think I have too many other complaints from travel or whatnot, which means we can just delve right into the news. I will just say on the Crackle Barrel topic, I love seeing the internet in an uproar about something that most people probably don't really care about. I've never been inside a Crackle Barrel. Maybe they're delicious. Maybe they're terrible. And it's just funny when all of a sudden they're going to change something that you've never been inside of. And even I was like, you fucking liberal assholes, you're going to take away my Crackle Barrel. and I've never been inside of one. I got suckered right in like the rest of you with a strong opinion about something that really doesn't affect my life in any capacity. And I don't know, Crackle Barrels might be delicious. I remember going to IHOP when I was in high school, and it was a great time, but also so unhealthy that actually it shouldn't be legal. Like, pancakes are already a whole lot, and I love pancakes. Pancakes are a good time. The problem with pancakes is you can't start your day with pancakes. I know they pretend it's a breakfast food, but really it's got to be at 2 a.m. when you're drunk and stone food. And the proper way to eat pancakes is you need like you need the Grand Slam platter. It's got a platter. It's got to come with the eggs. It's got to come with the home fries. It's got to come with whatever your preferred meat is. And then 2 pancakes is a good amount of pancakes. You can pretend like, oh, I'm filling up on the eggs and stuff. I'm being healthy over here. But anyways, I have nothing more on that. I'll take a couple comments. We can take a couple comments, and then we can get into all the shenanigans that I've planned. We do have quite a bit of news to get through, and anyways, also go check out my Zero Hedge episode with Gene Epstein. I think it's a worthwhile listen. TJ Hawthorne, who of course put together our gig out in Minnesota, which was also fantastic, reposted the stream. Thank you. I appreciate you reposting the stream. We've got Vasa, I can't pronounce that. Some RYM to end the workday. I hope that you work out west and that you're not actually working this hard in life. But okay. TJ Hawthorne, dude, I want to go so bad. Sorry you gave up those miles so that I could bring out menuing, but road trip. Do what you got to do. Make it to Max's. You can camp there. Alexander Yarima, Hillary Clinton blackmailed Bill into marrying her. I'd like to see the receipts. What evidence you got on that? That's a exciting storyline. I will delay the entire episode and just talk about Hillary Clinton blackmailing Bill Clinton into marrying her, but I would need more information on the topic in order to do so. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off with the latest from Ukraine and Russia. This ongoing saga of a war. And I think it's a little bit more of what I've already said, but that's what I do now. You read the news, you see the headlines that confirm your point of view, and then you do 45 minutes of podcasting where you just repeat things that you've already said. And so this article was from the Wall Street Journal. Ukraine deal is no closer despite president's big push. And basically what this article was flirting with was that thus far, the U.S. has not allowed Ukraine to engage in offensive strikes on Russia with U.S. military equipment. We have not given them missiles or other equipment and allowed them then to use those things to go ahead and actually strike within Russia. And as Donald Trump is trying to seek new leverage to force Putin to actually cut a deal, at least what this article is teasing is, hey, we're not letting this team play any offense. Maybe what we need to do is to start letting the Ukrainians start actually striking Russia. And obviously, I think what the problem with this is that now you're flirting with real war. It's already been, hey, we're not actually fighting the Russians. We're just giving money to the Ukrainians. And if you remember a couple years ago when there was that fake storyline about the outrage that Russia was paying members of Al-Qaeda when they successfully killed U.S. service members, and how upset we were, and it wasn't even true, but that was Russia not giving gear but making payments for killings. And now we're completely funding a war while pretending like we're not actually in the fight. And I think it all just speaks to when you're flirting with having a war. It's like if your girlfriend's at the bar and she's being a little bit too chatty with the dude, you see it as a little bit disrespectful. And then if she goes back to the guy's place or goes back to, oh, no, I'm just hanging out. It's like you're flirting with a bigger war and you're allowing to create an environment where things might escalate, which I think has been the mistake of ever being in this war, was that Ukraine was not going to win, and the more money we give them, the more people are going to be killed and the more false hope that's going to exist. So let's be pragmatic and just call it a quits. And, of course, Zelensky doesn't want to do that. And now as Donald Trump tries to walk away with a negotiating win, the other one's going to be to say, well, we got Putin to agree not to take all of Europe. When we finally sat down with him, he was talking about taking all of Europe, and we really won this thing by convincing him just to keep the territories that he already conquered. So I guess that's one way of having a win. is claiming that then when they sat down with Putin, one guy Trump just whispers into his ear, "Hey, listen, I need you to make some demands and then pretend like I said no and you realized, okay, Trump's a strong man and I really want peace, so I won't give you." That's one. And then the other one is trying to seek new leverage. And at least that's why they're now flirting with the idea of offensive weapons. All right. And then the next one is, of course, Zelensky saying, in response to what was made known that the Pentagon told them that they're not allowed to use the U.S. equipment to bomb within Russia, is Zelensky saying, well, yeah, well, we're building our own equipment so that we can go ahead and do so, such as what we've done with the drone attacks. If anyone thinks that those earlier drone attacks were not with any U.S. intelligence, or whatever happened with the Nord Stream was not U.S. involvement and was just some random actors in Ukraine, sure, okay. But you got Zelensky even responding to this and going, nope, we're working on our own offensive weapons because we're not going to be held back, which thus far, I mean, they haven't done a lot of strikes within Russia, but there was an incident last week. Headline: Russian nuclear power plant damaged in Ukrainian drone attack. IAE monitors radiation. And once again, I think all of this just speaks to, don't flirt with wars. Don't flirt with these things escalating. Don't be in half-fake skirmishes that can then lead to bigger escalations and actually having a war. And it's an unnecessary risk on all of our plates that this just kind of lurks in the atmosphere, continues to go on, and has the potential to continue to escalate. And then here's the last headline that I will, bring to the attention of the Run Your Mouth viewers on the latest from Ukraine and Russia. This one, I just thought it was funny. Zelensky wants EU to provide $1 billion monthly allowance to fuel war against Russia. And I felt like this almost like a reverse Dr. Evil, where he's like, $1 billion, I'll continue to fight. It's like, none of us want you to continue the war. And so what, you're threatening us that we have to give you the money so that you can continue to do the thing? And it's got to, we got to come up with $1 billion a month, $1 billion a month, so we can continue having the thing that we don't want, because it could end up being catastrophic for everybody and it doesn't need to continue and there's no point to it. It's quite the threat. Hey, unless you give me guys, if you guys don't do it, then the war will just be over. So I need you guys to give me $1 billion a month so that we can continue the thing that nobody wants. Or what? It will stop happening. That's the threat, is that if we don't give you the money, the thing will be over? Oh, the horrors. I guess if we don't fund it, we can actually end the war. But it's the latest threat from Zelensky, is that if we don't hand him $1 billion a month, he'll stop fighting Russia. And I guess that's what, I don't really know what the threat is there. Great. All right. I guess we just figured out how we can end the war, is quit giving the guy money. Episode brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $6 kilo, and the only place in the entire world that you can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. In an inflationary environment like this, who knows how they do it, but they're pulling it off. Everything else is going up in prices, and not the good folks at YoKratom.com. Steady, $60 kilos. Maddox Stam, based Robbie of the Fire. What do you think Trump indicated when he wants the government to take ownership stakes in Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Palantir? I don't even think Kamala would have done this socialist bullshit. All right, this one, I'll give you I wasn't really looking to get into this, so I'll give you guys a quick snapshot, which is, I hate socialism, and obviously industries that are run by the government are going to be less successful. There is an argument to be made both when it comes to the Federal Reserve and when it comes to, I think, the military-industrial complex of, is it a better system that private corporations, like, look at the Federal Reserve. So there's profits being made off the printing of money. So is it better that we have some market systems in place so that it's not entirely the chaos and stupidity of government? Or is there no reason why there should be private companies able to rip us off and print money, that we should actually just nationalize the entire banking industry because they just get bailouts and free cash from the government anyways? And listen, I could see the arguments both ways of, hey, it's a ridiculous system that anyone other than the government gets to just print free money. And but then you have the problem of, okay, if government takes it over, then how much worse is that for the markets? How much better is it for the markets? And then similarly, when it comes to these defense contractors, for one, since all the money's coming from government, how much socialist rot already exists in those industries where they're not as performance based as a free market. And so, like what you uh, how many of these programs run at cost overruns or inefficient anyways, and you have all the problems of socialism. I remember I was listening to Ron Johnson on a zero hedge debate where he was talking about that one of the problems with our war, our fake war with Russia, is that we're spending about 8 times more on things like bullets, which is because of the fraud in the military industrial complex. And then you also have to wonder, like, people complain with privatized prisons, for example, of perhaps we shouldn't have an incentive for corporations to be able to profit off the imprisoning of people, because then, like, you got some CEO who gets to decide to give one less piece of ham to prisoners one day to boost his profits, or you can have more fraud. There was this crazy story years ago about this judge being bribed who was sending more kids to juvie because I guess it was a private juvenile detention facility. You can go, this is immoral for there to be a private stake in imprisoning other people. But then on the same note, if you leave it for government, then the argument is that it's actually made to be more expensive. And then there's still the whole racket of unions and everybody else who has jobs by imprisoning individuals. So have you gotten rid of the incentive of just, over policing and, things like drug laws to keep your prisons full so you can keep all your, your wardens and everyone else with good pensions and employed? So bringing that now to the military industrial complex, if you got the money out of war profits, would that be better and create less of an incentive for government to be involved in these wars? If the war industry was actually socialized, I remember the first time that I found out that, government doesn't actually, just build our warplanes, that they actually contracted to a private company. I actually thought that was a little bit goofy. So there you have it. It's kind of both sides of it. I don't know that I have a strong opinion other than socialism is always bad. And if the more government you have involved in these private industries, probably the worst run that they will be, and the more that will cost us, and the less efficient that it will be. But possibly in industries such as war, maybe that's preferable, and maybe it actually have less corruption in pushing more war. But then you can look at it the other way and go, look at how gigantic the Pentagon is and all the salaries that exist in the Pentagon and how much money gets lost at the Pentagon every year. So even if you remove the profit incentives of basically rigging government to spend more money with your industry, which might even include, having an Afghanistan war that goes on for 20 years, or then once you finally get out of that, pivoting to a Ukraine war. And then if you get out of that, figuring out, well, where can we start a new war to make sure that the military industrial complex can continue to continuously run its, run and have its profits. I'm just saying it's all bad. I don't know which of the two is worse. And it certainly seems to be goofy that Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, is pushing for more socialism in all these sectors. So there you go. A long non-answer. Let's take a couple more comments, then we can get back to the slides that I actually had prepared, of which maybe I have firmer opinions on. Liberty Styles. Fully nationalized is better than government financed private monopoly. There you go. That's a shorter, more succinct, maybe even libertarian position of what I was meandering and circling. Let's just read it again. I feel like that's a fair answer. Fully nationalized is better than government financed private monopoly. I really have to dig into that one, but my snapshot is that they're both bad, and I can at least see an argument for why it's better. I'd love to maybe talk to some of the smarter libertarians and see what they had to say about it. Of if we removed a profit incentive from private corporations to lobby the government and or even have blackmail on government officials or whatever else they do to keep the war machine going, if perhaps we'd be in a better spot. Red Devil United. This sort of thing has been going on for a long time. Trump is the only one dumb enough to brag about it. All right. Austin Nads. Zelensky thinks that by threatening to stop the war and thereby letting Russia win, we lose. That is entirely the fault of our leadership, shrieking over Russia taking over a part of Ukraine and then being swooned by his courtship. I'm okay with that. All right, last comment, and then we'll move on to our next topic. Incentive is still to pay to charge as much if subsidize monopoly. Yeah, well, that's kind of along the lines of what I was saying, is that perhaps there's already so much socialist rot in the system of not having to actually compete for these profits. And so you've got all the rot of not actually be holding to performance and returning value. And so it's not necessarily any worse if it's run by government. I don't know. That one, we'll have to go to our more higher class libertarian sages for potentially a better answer on that. Obama judge orders dismantling of Alligator Alcatraz, relocation of detainees. And of course, it was because of the environment, which I guess the Indian tribes out in Florida are very racist and that they believe that Mexicans are bad for the environment. I guess these liberal judges are quite racist. And if anything, I guess that's more of a reason why these people need to be deported immediately and that they shouldn't be kept in, detainment centers or whatnot until it's figured out how to deport them, because apparently keeping them anywhere is actually bad for the environment. And it's interesting that environmental laws even get in the way of government business. If you just think about the EPA, and this is always the nonsense, they did the exact same thing in Arizona, where Arizona got sick about the fact that there was no border wall. And so for like, what is it? It's $20 million a mile or per square mile on border wall. And then Arizona just ended up putting up like out of commission shipping containers and basically surrounding it in barbed wire for significantly cheaper. And I'm sure whatever business interest has the contract with government to be building the border wall was like, damn, this is really making us look bad, because you can just put shipping containers here and you throw some barbed wire on that. It actually looks like more of a wall because you got steel on both sides of the thing and you don't have to paint it black so that people can't climb it. And then, of course, the reason why that needed to be taken down was because of environmental reasons. And this is what I was talking about in the other episode where I announced that I was now a Nick Fuentes first American, is that it's Jew lawyery. And it's the same thing, the complaint go listen to part of the problem when I was talking about what they're going after Bolton for. It's always bullshit reasons. It's like either this thing is a good idea or it's a bad idea. Either you need to have places that you can detain Mexicans or not. But the fact that environmental regulations get in the way of government's business of when they build things that are seemingly necessary, that, well, for environmental reasons, can we actually ever have a conversation about the meat and potatoes of the issue of, well, what's the plan? How many people get into the country illegally? How are we deporting these people? Where are we storing them en route to being deported? How are we processing them? Is this the moral way of doing it? That's the meat and potatoes of it. Coming along with some bullshit about environmental regulation of, well, they can't be stored here. All right, well, then where? Where would be better for the environment? How is this bad for the environment? What could be used with this area that wouldn't be destructive for the environment? So is this land just that's owned by the government just supposed to be sit vacant forever? If there's ever a vacant area of land that the government has a runway on, can it ever be used in any capacity without it being bad for the environment? Of course, I didn't see any specifics on why it's bad. I'm just kind of amused by the fact that environmental regulation not only seems to get in the way of private businesses going about doing their business, but it even seems to shut down government when they're trying to get things done. All right. Next is, let's move on to Ghislaine Maxwell talks Trump, Clinton, and others in released DOJ tapes. And it's great for Ghislaine Maxwell to be able to sit down, they pull out the whole transcript, and then even government officials turn around and go, well, Ghislaine Maxwell said so. I mean, if Ghislaine Maxwell said that nobody should be in trouble because nothing was actually happening, and certainly Trump never did anything and Clinton never did anything, well, then Ghislaine said so. Who could be a better authority on the crimes that were committed by this lady than Ghislaine herself? Ghislaine herself is saying that nothing bad happened. So, you know what? I don't even know why we prosecuted this person. I don't even know why she's sitting in jail. It turns out from her own testimony, if you read the transcript, nothing horrible was going on. So I mean, why we should just listen to her and release her right from jail because Ghislaine said so. It's right in the transcript. And there were some very odd statements made in this. Like, for one, she seems to be tiptoeing around even being honest and admitting that she was involved in any crimes in any capacity. And then one of the ones that caught my eye was a statement about that, I think she said Clinton was never on the island. And wait a second, if nothing horrible ever happened on the island, why does it matter if he wasn't on the island? If there were never inappropriate things going on while massages were going on, and you guys just hung out at the island that was totally innocent and there were no problems at the island, why does it matter if Bill Clinton was never at this island? I thought there weren't any problems at the island. And then she goes, there were just some underage massages, but I don't actually know. Here, I think I have a quote here. No, this is a video of Jim Jordan being asked about this. And, basically floating some of the things that we've already heard, which is, listen, if there was anything there, the Democrats would have used it against Trump. I think the problem with that line of reasoning is that maybe it's a mutually assured destruction and they couldn't just go after Trump over this thing while they're trying to brush it under the rug and all be off the hook for it. I mean, Donald Trump pulled that great move when they started complaining about his inappropriateness with women, where he pulled that press conference before the debate in which he had all of Clinton's accusers to just shut it down and be like, you really want to talk about this? And so the fact that the Democrats never brought up, firstly, it could be that Trump wasn't actually involved and or he was less involved. He was just friends with the guy, and all the Democrats were actually doing the horrible stuff. So it wasn't worth them bringing up the storyline of Donald Trump's relationship because it was just going to call into focus the fact that this is a real thing and a real problem. So I just don't buy that argument. But then, once again, we've got another character, Jim Jordan, who's been good on a bunch of stuff. But here he is floating the same thing of, hey, they released the entire transcript and Ghislaine herself saying not a problem. All right, let's roll the clip and hopefully we have nice, crisp and perfect sound.
We'll see. What I know is they didn't release parts of the transcript.
I think there's a good chance we're not going to have sound because I'm hearing it out of the wrong spot. Hold on one second. I think I can already tell. I think I have to make an adjustment here. All right, here we go. Now, with perfect and wonderful sound. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
The whole transcript, and it confirms that. So,
all right, I'll pull it back again. It sounds like there was sound the first time until the adjustment I made. All right, here we go. Replaying it. Nice, crispy, perfect sound.
We'll see. What I know is they didn't release parts of the transcript. They released the whole transcript, and so you can go through the whole thing. And, of course, this confirms what we all knew. If the Democrats, if President Trump had done something wrong, you don't think the Democrats would have released that? I mean, it was their Justice Department who handled all this. You don't think the Garland Justice Department and the Chris Wray FBI would have released information? We knew President Trump didn't do anything wrong here. He said that repeatedly. This transcript is the whole transcript, and it confirms that. So, I think there's nothing there. It seems based on what we got from the interview of Miss Maxwell.
Congressman, last one for you.
There you go. Who could be more trustworthy than Ghislaine herself? And that's why let her out of jail. There's no reason for her to be there. Nothing happened. Nothing to see here. It's all perfect. All right. And then here was the one thing that I pulled it out. I'm going to guess that this was from the Wall Street Journal, but I don't remember. All right, let me read it. Epstein client list. Maxwell said there is no Epstein client list, a list of people to whom Epstein allegedly trafficked young girls, and she never saw any of Epstein's associates abusing girls or young women. I never, ever saw any man doing something inappropriate with a woman of any age. I never saw inappropriate habits. The Justice Department has also said no such list exists. Epstein didn't keep a list of men who had a massage on his properties and didn't solicit information from masseuses who treated his friends in order to blackmail them, according to Maxwell. There's no list of people getting massages, she said. During Maxwell's trial in 2021, prosecutors said she recruited vulnerable girls by befriending and introducing them to Epstein. She and Epstein would groom and abuse the victims, some as young as 14. David Marcus, Maxwell's lawyer, said in a statement that Maxwell didn't receive a fair trial and she didn't dodge any questions from Blanche. Marcus thanked the Justice Department, blah, 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 blah. All right, there you go. You know, totally honest and vindicating everybody, including herself, that nothing actually happened in the storyline. And, you know, for trusting her, let's just let her right out of jail. All right, now let's shift to our next topic. Before we do, let's thank our other sponsor for today, Sheath.com. Greatest underwear to ever grace the balls of men. My friends, if you haven't stepped up your underwear game, if you haven't ditched your Fruit of the Looms, if you haven't ditched your shitty briefs or your tighty whities, your jock straps, which makes no sense. Every once in a while in the gym, I see some dude in a jock strap, and I'm like, I don't understand why you just want something that cups your balls, has a strap around the back of your legs, and then still leaves your ass right up against your pants. Can anyone, you know what? I might add this to the bug out, which is just explain to me why the jock strap exists. Don't you mostly want underwear so that your dick's not rubbing against your jeans? And that if you fart a wet one, which I don't do. You know, the last time I sharted was not since I'm a kid, but sharts do happen. And that's why you want a protective layer between your ass and your pants. Otherwise, you're just ruining your pants. Can anyone explain to me why the jock strap exists? But anyways, in the meantime, until someone comes forward with information about the jock strap, I would like to remind everyone that Sheath.com has the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. If you choose to use the sheath, pouch, you can separate your dick and balls. If you don't, you can just wear it like the most comfortable boxer briefs you've ever owned, and they are high quality. I still have my original pairs. Sheath.com, use promo code RYM. You get yourself 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. And on that note, sometimes they have even better promos running on the website, but they forwarded me an email of someone saying, hey, you had a better promotion on the website, but Robbie the Fire sent me here. I love his podcast. I love that you support it. And I encourage you guys all to do the same. Let Bobby the Bank know that I sent you, and get yourself some Sheath.com. All right, now let's delve into another topic of scattered headlines that already reinforce things that I've said on the show. But let's start with this. So obviously, Donald Trump has finally implemented the tariffs. You've got a lot of people going, hey, look, tariffs didn't drive up prices at all. I said, I think it's too early to tell. I think some people got in ahead of the tariffs. They brought things into the country. Tariffs have just started, and maybe it's not going to drastically increase prices. We'll see how it plays out. All right. Now, I have also theorized that I think it's going to favor big business because I think big business has more resources to plan, figure out how to get around these things. And this one I hadn't even considered. And I'm not saying that this is going to be the trend forever. I'm not saying that this is perfect proof. I just found this article interesting, so I'm going to relate with you guys. But it's essentially saying that the biggest retailers are doing well in the tariff environment because they have more ability to basically eat the tariffs and not have to increase costs for their customers, which, you know, would play into Trump's idea that corporations can be nice and they don't have to actually increase their pricing. And I guess thus far, Walmart and others haven't had to. But the reality of the situation on the ground, and it's interesting to me, is that they're actually scooping up more business because they're not increasing prices, while smaller businesses have had to increase their prices. And it's interesting because this is usually the complaint with monopolies, is that monopolies are going to be able to step into the market, undercut everybody else, and then once they drive out the competition, then they have endless ability to raise their prices. Now, I don't actually think in a free market that can ever happen because, you know, once they start dropping the prices, then there's opportunities to step back in and compete with them. But anyways, you know, it's just funny to me. Firstly, the complaint about monopolies is their ability to drop prices and, you know, get rid of competition. And, you know, now you have here in the tariff environment that at least the first look and first reporting is that prices are not increasing drastically. And that the biggest retailers have the biggest advantage because as they are larger, they seem to have more resources to not have to increase pricing on you. my theory on why it was going to benefit them was that they were just going to figure out, like tax planning, they'd figure out more ways to get around the tariffs, and that they would do a better job of lobbying the government for carve outs for their industries, of which we have seen some of that, such as U.S. manufacturers with steel. Now, this was another article that caught my eye. It was Boeing 737, American made, but globally sourced. And this was something that I had talked about on an earlier episode of, if you want American made items, being able to import raw goods for cheaper then just allows the next corporation to do something with those items to create something in America. And why does it matter if we make the raw goods here from a jobs perspective only? All right, let's put on our thinking caps here, and let's not look at the strategic asset. And if you guys want more on that, go listen to my episode with Gene Epstein on Zero Hedge. He delved into that one. But let's assume, without delving into substitute goods or what environment we're in, where we absolutely can't import any of these items, and therefore we need to make all of the original things in the United States of America, so we're completely self-sustaining, and we have no incentives to continue to have trade and peace with other countries because we can completely self-sustain and have a self-insulated economy, and that even if that drives up all prices because you erode all the value of free trade and specialization. So let's just shelve that whole conversation for a second and just look at the concept of we want more American jobs. And once again, you can go listen to the Gene Epstein episode where he breaks down how well manufacturing jobs actually pay versus construction or service industry jobs, which will be harmed by driving up prices because of tariffs. And, or you can listen to my episode with David Stockman where we delve into that the increased tariffs are actually not enough because of how much cheaper it is to do things in Vietnam to actually warrant moving a single job to the United States of America. So if you guys want more specifics and less of my snapshot bullshit, you can go listen to the 2 interviews I've done on Zero Hedge, one with Gene Epstein on the topic and one with David Stockman on the topic. But this is just something that I've spoken about before on the show, which is importing raw goods from other countries then allows you to actually manufacture things in the United States of America. And so for those of you who are actually watching this as opposed to just listening to it, you can look at this chart of all of the components that go into Boeing 737s. And while the plane is made in America, just how global the supply chain is of items and components needed in order to actually make those planes. All right. And then I think I had one more thing on this topic. No, it's not quite on, it's not on the topic of tariffs, but obviously Donald Trump continues to duke it out with the Federal Reserve. He both thinks that the job reporting is wrong and that we need to lower the interest rates. And now he's starting to go after Fed governors for, faulty mortgage applications or whatever, so that he can, potentially institute more governors on the board and potentially influence, the interest rate policy of the Fed. Now, like I said, trying to criticize Donald Trump for going after the Fed's a bit of a pickle because I don't think the Fed should exist. And, on the bigger level, the Fed shouldn't exist because it just is an apparatus to give free money to the banks and to keep fractional reserve banking, which is just a scam to indebt us to the banks as they get free money that we don't get to have. And then there's the second run, which is even if you want to overlook the bigger scam of that the Federal Reserve is actually owned by the banks and it is there both to bail them out and to keep fractional reserve banking scams going. Like, let's just imagine that didn't exist. Well, then you got the problem of, are they even good at what they're supposed to do, which is balancing employment and inflation, or do they just create asset bubbles and then continuously lie about managing inflation and constantly get things wrong? And these guys all get great jobs, well-paid jobs, while they continue to get things wrong. So along the lines of the weaker criticism of the Fed, of just that these people have good jobs, government jobs, while they just get it all wrong, because there's nothing to get right. The whole thing's a big scam. They are changing their policy, which is they create, all right, firstly, the Fed off the bat, they have a target inflation of 2% a year, which means that even if they were to track inflation perfectly and they actually accurately measured all inflation, they actually target eroding your wealth by 2% every single year. Someone who's better at math can break down how that compounds over time and over a 10-year period if they actually hit their inflation target. If you assume that they actually hit the inflation target properly and they keep inflation to a perfect 2% and that they measure inflation properly, someone else can do the math on what that means you're losing in purchasing power every 10 years. But now they created this system where, because they're just winging it. So a couple years ago, to excuse higher inflation levels, they said, well, there were a couple years where we didn't hit our 2% target. So if inflation is now higher than 2%, it's because we're doing catch up for the years that we didn't get to steal that much of your purchasing power. There were a couple years where we got it wrong, and we actually didn't steal as much of your money as we were looking to steal. And so we're making up for the bad years of not being able to steal enough of your wealth. And so in the latest of the Fed just making changes and winging it and pretending like they actually have a job that does anything to help you in any capacity, they are at least ending that policy of being able to do extra credit on inflation, of that if they missed their inflation target of stealing 2% of your wealth, it used to be that they could make it up. They're an extra credit report that they didn't do all of the stealing that they were looking to do. So then they would make it up in later years. And now they're formally ending that policy, I guess, until inflation kicks back up and then they lie again. Or the next time that they save on inflation, because there were years that they didn't have quite as much inflation as they were looking for. Imagine if there's a year with deflation, I'm sure they'll turn right back around and go, well, we're going back to our policy of making up for the years that we didn't steal enough of your money. All right, let's see. That was slide 13. Let's move on to slide number 14. Changing topics here. All right, we've got Donald Trump. First he militarized going into Washington, D.C., and now he's flirting militarization and going into other cities. And on the one hand, just to give you guys the full circle of thoughts that I have floating around in my brain, I don't like that there's even a police force, and the fact that there's a government agency that's there mostly to monitor my behavior and listen, I understand prosecuting crimes and we need some sort of a way to protect private property. And if people are out in the world stealing, killing, raping, etc., we need some sort of a mechanism to keep us all safe and police those individuals. But that said, I don't really like speeding tickets or the other interactions that I seem to have with law enforcement. But safe cities are important, and it's a government function. And so we've already got this force that exists in our cities. And so I would think, you guys, the government, your pitch is that you're going to govern. And so the police department's what's supposed to exist for this. And I guess you can make the argument that the police department is at least integrated into your city. And so that's better than the government kill force coming into your city and getting done what the police department can't get done. Why don't we just let the police department do what the police department's going to do and figure out how they can actually get that job done? I guess on the other side of it, if the federal government's actually better at managing things and the president's that much better than your mayor, and you've got these people who are just sitting around on military bases twiddling their thumbs and they're government employees, and maybe you can save us money by making use of this other division of the government who are just standing around and they're being paid anyways to do the police work. In my opinion, I don't think we want the government killing forces that are trained to just take orders to be in our cities, because I don't think we want to normalize the government's killing force being in our cities, which is mostly, we all went through COVID. We remember COVID restrictions. I don't think having a more organized branch of government with guns being able to enforce the government agendas is going to help us have more freedom. I don't like, and I understand maybe it's attractive right now if some of these cities or areas are so out of control with murders, or they are so out of control with illegal immigration that we need to use this department of government. But it seems to me like, do you want to end up in another COVID environment where we've already somehow normalized military checkpoints or military activity within our towns? It seems like a dangerous escalation of government gun killing forces, top-down order systems being in our cities doesn't sound like a win. With all that said, this was then asked from the mayor of Chicago. And, the Democrats are trying to figure out new leadership. They're trying to figure out how they can sell themselves. And I guess they have a new archetype of individual, which is essentially Joe Biden politicians, where you get a guy who has no thoughts of his own. And it seems to me like they must have put this guy in front of a teleprompter. And his teleprompter skills are seemingly about as good as Joe Biden's. Let's roll the clip, and you guys can confirm for me that we have sound.
I'm going to play something else President Trump said on Friday with regard to your city.
Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent, and we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this, and it won't even be tough.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Your reaction to what you just heard.
Yeah. Well, listen, the president of the United States of America has repeated this, petulant presentation since he has assumed office. And, if the reporting is actually true, what he is proposing at this point would be the most flagrant violation of our Constitution in the 21st century. The city of Chicago does not need a military occupation. That's not what we need. In fact, we've been very clear about what we need. We need to invest in people to ensure that we can build safe and affordable communities. That's what I've done as mayor since assuming office. It's unfortunate that this president is working overtime to divide in his attempt to conquer working families and to conquer cities across America. But this is clearly a violation of the Constitution, and we're going to remain firm and vigilant in our commitment to ensure that our democracy is protected and our humanity is secured.
All right. So firstly, I can't fault a guy for spacing out while he's on air, thinking about this or that and going, oh, shit, it's my turn to talk. But with that said, it feels like he's reading from a teleprompter, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel that way? I guess, although on this one, I agree with him. I don't think we really want military forces within our city. All right, before I move forward with the return of the most annoying topic in American history, why don't we take a couple of comments here? Let's start with, I think that Trump isn't in the E-files simply because I, in no capacity, can believe that if he was in the E-files, that it wouldn't have been released by now. There's enough people at all levels of federal government that hate Trump enough for us to believe that someone somewhere would have leaked his connection, even if it was damaging to the Dems. I'm going to take the other side of this, that I think the Epstein topic, if the conspiracies are true, are so damning to the intelligence agencies and the institutions that perhaps even if it would have taken out Donald Trump, it's just too much of a mutually assured destruction of things that are actually very important to the system. Austin Nads, assembled in America as a better description for the 737. Fair enough, but with that said, those are still, some people have the jobs in a plant putting it together, and those are jobs. And so, why would you prefer the job of someone being in a mine pulling the thing out of the ground versus the job of assembling the thing? And the banking cartel that is the Fed. I agree with you on that. Steven saying he wants more bullshit. I like that too. And then Ba93211, I don't like Trump doing it, but if they won't enforce the laws, someone should. There you go. All right. Let's take a look at these two headlines. First one is alleged MS-13 gangbanger Kilmar Abrego Garcia home in Maryland after release from jail, but faces quick deportation to Uganda. Oh, I accidentally just copied the same headline twice because there were two different headlines because the other one was, I think he was quickly picked back up. So, listen, we've got into this one 1,000 times. I would just like to flash forward to the end of the storyline, find out who is right, find out who is wrong. It's also just interesting to me, what is this going to end up costing the United States government? On the same note, I'd love to know who is paying this guy's legal bills that he's able to put up this much of a fight. But, you know, seemingly the government was very sure about the fact that he was an MS-13 member. The judges that he's got him in front of, I guess that is not so damning that they won't let him post bail and be released. And the latest from the government is basically threatening him of plead guilty and we'll send you to Costa Rica instead of Uganda. And then, of course, his defense lawyers being like, this is outrageous. You're clearly just trying to intimidate my client so that, you know, he can't prove his innocence. Like I said, this has been one of the most annoying storylines. I'd like to just flash forward to the end, but there's the latest on how it's playing out. All right. Trump moves to eliminate cashless bail. Could it help lower crime? So this was, you know, listen, you guys can go listen to Part of the Problem. I delved into both of the big issues from Donald Trump last week, which was burning the flag. The short on that is, to me, you know, being able to burn a flag, it's free speech, and being able to say that, you know, this is too dangerous of a form of speech is a slippery slope of what else will they declare as too dangerous. And then the other one was taking a stake in Intel, which I thought just showcased, you know, what exactly is the coherent philosophy here of the government owning 10% stakes of corporations. So the other move that he made on the same day was eliminating cashless bail. And could it help lower crime? And give me 1 second here. Right. I was just a little bit annoyed about this because it's like, why does everything need to be such a riddle? There certainly are instances of people who are released too easily, not prosecuted or released on cashless bail, and then end up recommitting crimes that should have just been potentially just held in jail. With all that said, you end up with like how many people on cashless bail don't end up showing up or recommitting versus, I guess, whatever regular bail is. And then with, if implemented properly, which is like the other, I think like the bracelet monitoring or otherwise, are you having these problems? And so I won't be doing more homework on this one, but it's just, it's another one where it's like, there's too much specific information lacking to know whether or not, I guess cashless bail is a real problem. All right, I guess I could have skipped that one. I don't remember why I put it in here. All right, I think last storyline for today, and this is another one that drives me nuts about Donald Trump. Curious what you guys think. So Donald Trump made this statement this week. We'll start with what he said this week. I hear so many stories that we're not going to allow their students, told Trump reporters, as trade talks with China are ongoing. And then he goes on to say, obviously, we love having Chinese students here, blah, blah, blah. But I love this. I hear so many stories that we're not going to allow their students. And it's like, yeah, it's from you. You guys started that story. It wasn't just made up. Marco Rubio, here it is. It's the old Joe Biden. Nobody's saying that. Yeah, I'm saying it because everyone's saying it, and that's why I'm asking you. I didn't just make it up. Nobody says that. And so here we have new visa policies put America's first, not China. This is from the U.S. Department of State. And let's make it full screen so I can actually go around and read it to all you nice people of the Run Your Mouth podcast. Move my fan out of the way. Here we go. Under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department will work with the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. We will also revise visa criteria to enhance scrutiny of all future visa applications from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. But there you go. Donald Trump, you know, he's out there and he goes, I don't even know why you guys are saying that we ever wanted to do that. And no, it's not that I changed my mind because somebody new, some new advisor had a conversation with me and gave me information. Somebody new lobbied me and told me why it's so important for the industry of college to be able to have these people within the country. And this is one of those ones, I see it both ways. You know, with all the money that government has put into colleges, maybe we shouldn't be training these individuals. And then I see all these arguments from colleges about why it's so important for these global connections to be able to be made for the kids that are there. Well, then, you know, be a private business. Don't take any government money. And I guess if you don't have any government money, I guess you still have the problem of actually having the visas for your students. And so in that case, yeah, if there's no government money in your institution and you want to be able to charge someone from another country a larger tuition price in order to study there, then I guess government shouldn't be able to get in the way of who you want to sell your product to. Now, you might say, well, what about for all the rest of us that we would like to be able to sell our products to more people internationally? I don't really have an answer to you of if that would be favoritism. But there's really something to be said with all just the government money in these institutions that, if there's great education for people, let's give it to Americans. Now, as to what level of Chinese Communist Party involvement there is in paying these kids full tuition so that they can get American education, or whether or not that is some sort of a spy capacity, if there's anything being taught that's more valuable, or why these kids can't just get an education in their own country, or if not bringing them here then creates an incentive for further competition because now there's all these smart kids who are left out to dry, and that forces new competitors into the markets that then offer higher education. I don't really care. I don't really care. And I see an argument for give it to American kids or leave these businesses alone. I'm more just calling attention to Donald Trump being like, why would anyone say that we didn't want these kids? It's because you said it. I don't know why that wouldn't be annoying to everybody. All of you Trump loyalists, why is it not annoying when he just turns around with this thing of, I never said, no one would ever say that. And this was reported by Politico. Trump at the White House on Wednesday floated capping international student levels at 15% at Harvard University, which the administration has singled out for punishment as part of its broader attacks on elite institutions and higher education. But, new lobbyist got his ear. He had a different conversation with a different advisor. And so he's changing course. And of course, while he changes course, no admission of, hey, I'm changing my mind or someone gave me new information. It's just like, you guys are fucking crazy. I never said I wanted to do that. Well, it was Marco Rubio. And I have no agency over Marco Rubio. When Marco Rubio said that he was doing something at the president's direction, he was lying to you because I never thought that Chinese students shouldn't be allowed to study here. It's remember, I'm American first, but it's very important that Chinese students can steal your kid's spot at Harvard. All right. And then, I was going to play this video, but I guess here we go. All right, let's play this last video. I will comment, I'll take some of your comments in the chat, and then that's the end of the episode. Reminder, once again, go to porchstore.com. A couple tickets left for Philadelphia. And then Saturday, Smokeout Bug at Max is the original Porch pub because you can pitch a tent. And then I don't even know where I'm off after that. Maybe it's Birmingham, Alabama, and Atlanta, and something else. Go to porchstore.com. There's still about 20 dates coming, going all the way to December. All right, let's roll this tape.
Mr. President, you have charged me with the mission of...
This was supposed to start later.
Burned, and they didn't get burned, having to do with found many bags of information. I think they call them burn bags. They're supposed to be burned, and they didn't get burned, having to do with how corrupt the 2020 election was. And when will that all come out?
Mr. President, I will be the first to brief you once we have that information collected. But you're right, we are finding documents literally tucked away in the back of safes in random offices in these bags and in other areas, which again speaks to the intent of those who are trying to hide the truth from the American people and trying to cover up the politicization that was led by people like John Brennan and James Clapper and others that have caused really immeasurable harm to the American people and to our country.
Great job. Thank you. We look forward to hearing it. The public.
All right. So, I mean, they're just continuously teasing these storylines. One of them is that they found all these burn bags with these incriminating documents. Of course, they won't show us the burn bags. They won't show us the documents. But listen, everyone that's done corrupt things and in government, Donald Trump's on the case and they're going after it and no one cares about it more. The one thing that I just think is hilarious about the burn bags is that they're basically describing it the way I used to hide candy wrappers for my mom, where you would steal candy or whatever else and you didn't want them to know you were eating it, so you would just shove it behind books or whatever. And then at some point, I guess that all got discovered. My kid brain, I think I just thought that it would sit on a shelf forever. But that's the way that they're describing these important self-incriminating documents, is that instead of just getting disposed of, they were shoving these wrappers behind other items, hoping that they would never be discovered. All right, that is our episode. Thank you for hanging out with us. maybe I just have to, for a long time, I was like, I got to do the podcast in the afternoon so I can get into the city at night and do stand up. I don't think I really go out on weeknights anyways. And we have like 800 people live on the show right now. So maybe I got to change this to be an evening thing so we can juice the numbers, get some more sponsor dollars, move some more tickets. And I do enjoy the engagement from the chat. But that is our episode. Thank you for hanging out with me. We will be back next week, Wednesday, with another episode. Also, I'll probably put out footage from the bug out next week or the week after that. But those do get edited down. I treat them like television, multi-camera shoot, do an hour, try and carve it down to 30 minutes. And so come out live. Anyways, that's the show. Thank you for hanging out.